Hey everybody, this is Sully with 5 freaking onion rings, and I have finally got this little monster, the Micro Beast 1407 3-inch racer, up in the air FPV style, and got some flight coming up for you. But first, an overview. Stay tuned. So this is my 3-inch after tons and tons of troubleshooting, let me tell you. First off, number one, if you have this type of VTX, this is the VTX 03, the LCD screen, which you can probably see here maybe, the LCD screen will definitely pop off. It's not optionally pop off, it will definitely pop off. It will still work though, so who cares. For the VTX antenna, you will have to put a blob of solder down to hold it on, otherwise it's going to tear off the first second. Even with hot glue, it overheats, the glue melts and flows, and shrink wrap, heat shrink, it will still overheat and pop right off with first rec. The same goes for the transmission antenna. If you have it like this, I did have them together, it will pop off, so I soldered the antenna to the ground and that worked fine. Now, I had jello in my last video with this. The jello is not fixed yet, but I figured out why, and it was my fault because I did not put this side plate on, and I didn't do that so I could have access to the memory card for my HD DVR thing. I will say the Cyclops is not the best camera for FPV. It steps through ranges, and you'll see it in the video in just a little bit, but it steps too much. So today's overcast, and that made it kind of easy, but light changing conditions are horrible because it takes about a second to get to the right exposure, and it does it in steps, not in a smooth transition. I started with some of the PIDs that y'all gave me, and kept going back and forth and could not figure out, you know, why I had that little dip at the end. It turns out that my low throttle setting for my receiver was set at 1070 when my actual low throttle was 1050, so every time I would punch out it would bobble. The other part of it, so that helped a little bit, the other part is this is a D-Shot 600 rated ESC 4-in-1, the BS 28 amp. It's D-Shot 600 rated, but it only runs 300, D-Shot 300. Anything higher and you'll get some twitchy bobble. Anytime you throttle change, it'll drop. One side will drop. Once I figured that out, I dropped my PID loop to 4K instead of 8K. Did the D-Shot 300, and pretty much after that, it's Betaflight stock PIDs, and I think I've bumped my eye gain a little bit. But it turned really good, and my motors came down. All four were the same temp, which was mildly warm, not blisteringly hot. Because with D-Shot 600 and the 8K PID loop, my back right motor came down to the point I thought my ESC was bad. Now, one other thing with this, when I was troubleshooting it, I had it fairly good, and then suddenly it started twitching on me, and twitching, and I was going back and forth and back. I mean, it twitched, and I was going back and forth, you know, Betaflight, looking through all the settings, make sure I didn't mess something up. All I did was change a battery, and it was everywhere, and I mean, it was like unflyable. Came down after 10 seconds, all four motors were hot, not blisteringly hot, but very hot. And it turns out, right there, Loctite your motor screws. I only used 3 because I needed something to hold my stack in, so I took 1 screw from each, and one of my screws came loose, and it didn't dawn on me until I'd gone back and forth and pretty much ran through 10 minutes worth of setting changes, or 10 minutes worth of flight and setting changes, to dawn on me to check my motors to make sure they were tight. And the only reason I did that is because I was going to check continuity. Now the funny part, I swapped out my props whenever I was going through this and ended up breaking one of my wires. So if you're in my last video, I took off one of the leads for my 4S battery to change it to 3S, and I said I saved all the silicone. Well, there's the silicone for it. So yeah, that's why I save all silicone coated wires in case I end up with something short. So I ended up having to rewire that. And finally, after weeks almost, I have my first FPV flight with an actual flip. My PIDs are not there yet because, like I said, I basically started over. I do have dynamic filtering on, PT1, and the first gyro notch filter disabled, and I haven't gone much farther than that because I wanted to tune it at that point. But here's my first flight, my first FPV flight, and it's with a ZOP 750 milliamp hour battery FPV. I got my first real punch out. I don't think I went to 100% actually, because I'm in my neighborhood and there's very, very little room. I also ran out of memory, so this flight is much shorter than it should have been. But as promised, here it is. And I want to thank you again. If you like this, give me a like and a thumbs up, subscribe. I'm going to end up tuning this, and this will probably be my primary flyer for a while. And yeah, like I say, give me a like, thumbs up. Hope y'all have a good one. Stay freaking awesome. Here's the flight.